no, you need to go because the symptoms that you are telling me that you're having, in addition to how you're looking right now, I believe that you have colon cancer. Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. As you can tell by the title of the video, today this is going to be part 2 of the story of how I got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, please press pause and go back and watch that, or else this video is not going to make much sense because it's going to start off literally where I left off in part 1. I hope that you enjoy this video. I hope that you learn a little something about autoimmune diseases and ulcerative colitis in general. If you like the video, please make sure that you smash the like button and hit subscribe, ring the notification bell so that way you will never miss any of my future videos. If you have any questions about anything I say or any ideas for future videos, just leave them on in the comments down below. I hope that you guys enjoy this video, and I'll see you next time. It got to the point where I was scared enough and I was in enough pain that I looked at my mom and I was like, you need to take me to the doctor and you need to take me like now. So she made an appointment and we got in. I didn't have a primary care doctor at the time because I hadn't had health insurance in a few years. So she got me in with a doctor, I believe it was her doctor. So I went to her doctor. It was somebody I had never seen before in my life, but they got me in within a few days. So I was like, okay, cool. We can figure this out. So we went to the doctor's appointment and I was really scared. Again, remember, I'm thinking I got 2 choices and one of them's a death sentence. Like, I'm thinking that this doctor is going to blow my entire world up, which, I mean, to be fair, either diagnosis would have blown my world up because colitis still, it's a lot, it's intense. But we went to the doctor and we took my weight, and that was the first time that I had really seen how much weight I lost. I believe I was down to 125 pounds. Now, again, I'll try to put up pictures if I can find any. I believe I didn't take any until I started getting a little better. But prior to that, I was almost 160. So I had lost like 35 pounds in 2 months. And that scared me. It did. And then the doctor sat down with me. I honestly don't even think she took me into her room. She just like sat down with me in the hallway and looked into my eyes. Now, if you guys don't know already, I am very pale. But she looked at me and was like, are you always this pale? And my mom was like, I mean, yeah. My mom was with me, by the way. And the doctor looked into my eyes and was like, I can't see anything in your eyes. And by that, she meant like the red lines. Let's see if you can. Like those are little red lines. If you can see them. Your eyes shouldn't be bright red, but she looked at my eyes and she was like, I can't see any of the, like, anything in your eyes, no blood whatsoever. So the doctor looked at my eyes and she was like, I can't see anything in your eyes. You're really pale. I'm scared about the amount of blood that you have lost, the symptoms that you are telling me. She looked at my mom and told her, you need to take your daughter to the ER immediately. And I didn't know what to think at that point. I was so scared. She just looked at my mom and repeated, she was like, you need to take her to the ER right now. And I think that was the first time it really sunk in that there was something seriously wrong with me. If a doctor didn't tell me that there was something wrong, then I could just blow it off. Yeah, I had done my own research, but like I had nobody in the medical field who had looked at me and told me that there was something seriously wrong with me. But then I had this doctor looking at me and telling my mom to get me to the hospital as soon as she possibly could because I was losing blood and there was something seriously wrong with me. I'm gonna try not to cry on this one because this still scares me to think about. But the doctor, I believe I had said something after she said something to my mom about taking me to the hospital, about not wanting to go. I'm a baby about the doctor. I hate going to the doctors. I hate going to the hospitals. Not a huge fan of needles, all of the above. And it was just a million times worse back then because I wasn't nearly as used to it. That was the first time I had stepped foot in a doctor's office in years. So to go from like just stepping into a doctor's office, only stepping on a scale and then having a doctor like visually assess me for 30 seconds and then tell me I had to go to the hospital. Like that was terrifying. So I had said something along the lines of like, no, we don't need to go or something along that. And she looked at me and said, was like, no, you need to go because the symptoms that you are telling me that you're having, in addition to how you're looking right now, I believe that you have colon cancer. And I know that I had looked it up before, and I know that it's a possibility, and I had gone over in my head a million times on how I was going to tell everybody around me. But it's different when a doctor tells you that that's what they think you have. I even brought up the possibility of my diseases. I was like, well, I've done some research, and like the two options I found are cancer and inflammatory bowel disease. And she was very much like, yeah, it could be an autoimmune disease, but like, maybe she was just being more urgent because cancer was a possibility. But she was like very dismissive of, she was like, yeah, that might be it, but I really think that this could be it. I really think that you might have cancer and you need to go to the hospital immediately. So we went to the ER, and I cried a lot, and my mom tried to tell me that I was going to be fine, that everything was going to be fine, that the doctor was just being cautious. But like, how do you handle being told that you probably have cancer when you're 18 years old by a doctor that you don't barely know when you haven't seen a doctor in years? Like, it was terrifying. I'm really glad we lived close to my hospital, or the local hospital, because I think it was only like a 10-15 minute drive when we were in the ER. So we went to the ER, and they did a few tests on me while I was there. When I first saw a doctor, the first lovely test I got was how do I say this? It's the test that all men dread once they reach a certain age, because they got to get their prostate checked. A doctor had to put a finger up my butt. And I remember, this might be graphic. So we were in the ER room. The doctor came in, talked about my symptoms, maybe just not as alarmist as the other doctor, but was like, no, we don't think it's cancer. Like, we think you're gonna be okay. We know that something's going on. Obviously there's something wrong with you, but like, I'm not gonna give you a death sentence right now, which was definitely reassuring. And I remember she was very much like, no, I think that it's going to be this autoimmune disease. Like, this is a much more realistic possibility than you have stage 4 colon cancer and you just didn't know about it. So I got to get that lovely test done, just by the doctor with, I'm pretty sure, both of my parents sitting there in the room with me. And she pulled out her finger and was like, oh yeah, there's blood there. And I was like, yeah, that's what I've been telling you guys. So they set me up for a CAT scan, and they did a scan of my bowels, and they were like, yep, there's something here. We think that it is ulcerative colitis, possibly could be Crohn's disease, because they didn't know at that time, but that's what they thought it was. They didn't see any sort of masses or anything. So cancer was kind of finally taken off the table, which made me feel a lot better, honestly. Until I got that CAT scan, I couldn't get the idea out of my head. But once they came back and were like, no tumors, you most likely have an autoimmune disease, I was like, okay, I can live with this. That first trip to the ER was actually a lot shorter than I thought it was going to be. I assumed I was going to be admitted because I was sick, like really sick, guys. But they didn't. They let me go home. They didn't give me any sort of blood transfusion. They did do some blood tests, and they told me that like my blood levels were just at the point where I did not need a transfusion. So they sent me home, and they set me up with a gastroenterologist that I could go and see. A little side story here, because I think this is hilarious. So the group of gastroenterologists that I was sent to also worked at the hospital, which is why I got referred over there. And there were about 4 people in the practice. I ended up choosing one doctor who I absolutely loved and continued going to him up until I got insurance a few months after I got diagnosed, because he didn't take my insurance, but he was incredible and I love him. But there were 4 doctors, and they tried to send me to 2 other ones first. The first doctor they tried to send me to was the father of my prom date. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think you would want the father of your prom date to give you a colonoscopy, especially less than a year after prom happened. Now, we never dated or anything. We talked shortly after prom. He's a great guy, don't get me wrong. Sweet guy, amazing. But like, I don't want your dad to stick a tube in me. Like, that's uncomfortable. I don't want to have to deal with that. No, thank you. So then they tried to give me another doctor who was the father of one of my brother's really good friends. And her younger brother actually went to school with me. So I knew both of his children. And again, I'm 18 years old, super self-conscious. At this point, I probably wouldn't care because I've had so many colonoscopies and like, it's their job. But at 18, doctors didn't do any of that kind of thing. I had never even had a pap smear before. So like, I really was not all into letting people see everything, even if they were doctors. And especially not if I knew and went to school with their children or went to prom with their children, because yeah, that was weird. So then they finally gave me another doctor after I objected twice. So yeah, the first two doctors that they tried to give me, I wouldn't accept. I was so embarrassed. So embarrassed. So when they finally gave me the third one and it was a name that I did not recognize, I was like, yes, please, that works. So they set me up with the doctor. They set me up with an appointment with him and kind of just let me go home. I actually left and immediately went and ate McDonald's, which was probably a terrible idea, but it's what I did. I'm pretty sure I ended up throwing up as soon as I got home. And then I waited for my appointment with my new GI doctor. Now this all happened very quickly because I went to the original doctor that same day I went to the ER. That night I was sent home, and then within 3 or 4 days I had my doctor's appointment at the gynecologist. No, gastroenterologist. Different problems. So I went to the GI appointment and the doctor talked to me and was like, all right, when can we do a colonoscopy on you? He was like, have you eaten today? And I was like, no, because I hadn't eaten yet. It was early-ish in the morning. He's like, okay, cool. Don't eat anything else for the rest of the day. We're doing your colonoscopy tomorrow. Now, he was really good and worked with me a lot because he knew that I did not have any health insurance. And at this point, because I waited until I was 18, all of these bills were on me. Possibly if I had gone to the doctor earlier, my mom would have been able to help me out, but like, because I was 18, legally I was an adult, legally I was responsible. So he was really good at working with me and like trying to figure out how to pay and how to get me on medication without completely bankrupting me. So on this first colonoscopy, we actually didn't even do a full colonoscopy. We did a sigmoidoscopy, which is only a partial one because I was awake. The sedation was gonna cost a lot more money. So instead they gave me a prescription for Valium and I took one of those. So the very first time that I had a partial colonoscopy, I was wide awake the entire time. Actually, it was pretty cool. I don't want to say I want to be awake the entire time for all of them because no. And I remember I had my teddy bear, I was holding my teddy bear, and like the nurse and the doctor were talking to me about my prom date and we were all laughing. I was on Valium, so I was obviously a little giggly. I was uncomfortable, but they did the best that they could. We talked, we joked. It wasn't a terrible experience. So once they were done with the procedure, I got to go into like the recovery room and sat there and waited for a little bit for the results. And they came in and they said, we're giving you a preliminary diagnosis of ulcerative colitis. That diagnosis can be confirmed through this biopsy that we also took because while they were in there, they took a few biopsies. They took a biopsy to just double check, make sure again that it's not Crohn's disease because while they are similar diseases, they are treated a little bit differently. So they wanted to double check, so they sent off the biopsy, but they were like, yeah, this is what you have. And at that point, we made a treatment plan. The treatment plan was steroids to get me stable-ish. People with autoimmune diseases often have to go on corticosteroids like prednisone. Prednisone is not fun. I will do, again, that's another video I need to do, prednisone, because I don't think people understand how much prednisone can suck. But it's also really good because it helps heal things very quickly. So what they do, or what they did for me, was put me on a round of steroids that lasted, I believe, about 2 months. So it was an extended round. Now, if I were to have a flare-up, I usually only get like a week's worth of steroids. But you have to remember at this point, I had had symptoms for over 1.5 years and had let this disease destroy the inside of my body for 1.5 years. And then they decided to put me on a medication called Humira. Now, you guys may have seen a lot of commercials for this. It is on all the time, and I laugh every time I see it. I'm not currently on Humira anymore. I was on Humira for many years after my diagnosis. It was given to me, though, because it had just been approved by the FDA for my disease. It had been used before because once a medication is used for one autoimmune disease, they kind of move them around with all of them. But it had just been officially approved by the FDA, which meant that the company was really trying to get people on it, and they were giving them away for free for people who had financial troubles. This medication, if not given by the company itself or some sort of discount program or through insurance, costs over $5,000 a month. Very, very lucky that I got diagnosed when I did-ish. I mean, it would have been nicer to get diagnosed earlier, but because I got diagnosed when I did, I got to be put on this medication that was very expensive, and it's for people with moderate to severe disease. It's a shot. So I had to inject the shot into my leg every other week, so every 2 weeks for about 6 years. And it really helped kind of pull me into remission, or remission-ish. I don't know if I will ever be completely symptom-free. I've never been completely symptom-free, but it's helped enough. However, it didn't help right away, and I also wasn't put on it right away. They wanted to give me the steroids first. So they tried after the colonoscopy, they sent me home with the steroids. They were going to work on applying to the company who makes Humira to see if I could qualify for their free medication program. We were working towards treatment. Everything was looking up. But my body, I think at that point, had given up.